You're listening to The Right Side of the Rivers, hosted by Todd McCollum and Russell Dreyer. This show tackles public issues from a Pittsburgh point of view, offering common sense conversations, right-of-center perspectives, and a focus on the people, policies, and principles shaping Pittsburgh, Allegheny County, and Pennsylvania.
Hello again, everyone, and welcome to The Right Side of the Rivers. This is the official podcast of the City of Pittsburgh Republican Committee, and I am your host and the chairman, Todd McCollum, joined as always by my co-pilot, the vice chairman, Russell Dreyer.
Great
Russell,
to see you, Todd.
I assume you're well.
Doing great.
Easter was good to you? The Easter Bunny? Good?
Beautiful Easter. Yeah.
Excellent.
Beautiful celebration. And may I say, churches were packed.
Good.
All across, not just Allegheny County, but from what I'm understanding, churches and services were packed.
That's
everywhere.
The way I understood it as well, too, and I'm glad we have our faith in our hand here.
Beautiful services.
Good work. We're trying to get out of the 4 seasons of spring here. We're trying to break through, but it's holding on. Weather's nice today, of course. Pirates did not win. It's tough to even find a cone anywhere to put up here. There's no small size cones.
That would have been a great. Yeah, that would have been a great addition.
We got to get
show.
Ike the elephant holding a cone up here. That'd be pretty awesome. We'll get it. We'll get
him a welder's mask or something.
We'll find it. Show 20. Very exciting. And we have a great guest today, but just a quick, Eileen again, as always, killed it.
City Council District 5, Eileen Cunningham, and of course, I don't have to tell you this, but she just signed up about 20 new committee people.
Yes.
Up there in Council District 5. So we are looking forward to bringing those people on.
Yep.
And maybe giving them a little bit of work to do. And who knows, maybe we can find a city council candidate up there.
That would be great. I think there's one there. We have to.
There's one there.
We have to nudge it a little bit, but we'll be fine. So that was last show, but we have a great show today.
Great show.
Another first. Our first Democrat makes an appearance on the right side of the rivers, and we are looking very much to it. A lot to talk about, a lot that we can't talk about. So why don't you go ahead and bring him in?
Sure. Well, it's a pleasure for me to have Anthony with us on the show here tonight. Anthony's a friend of mine. We've known each other for a long time. We're also almost neighbors. We live in the same part of the city, so we do get a chance to see each other from time to time. Anthony has a storied career in radio. He's been on talk radio for about 15 years in one capacity or another. And he's also been a union rep for several decades. So it's great to have Anthony on the show tonight. I would just like to welcome you in. Anthony, thank you for making time to be on the right side of the rivers.
Well, thank you, gentlemen, for the invite. It's a pleasure.
Well, Anthony, most of us know you. Most of you know you by your first name, Anthony from Oakland. You're a regular caller to the channel that has the market cornered on local politics here. For everybody else that don't know you or don't listen on a regular basis, tell us about yourself.
Well, I've been a Democrat most of my life. I'm an old school Democrat, a Kennedy Democrat, as I like to call myself. And back at the time when I first got involved with that party, we're a lot more conservative than you see today. And so for an old school guy like me, I find it very distressing to see the direction in which the party's going in, because it's almost like they're putting restrictions up for if you don't have groupthink.
Correct.
And
right.
So I don't like that. As a matter of fact, as we were talking earlier, Russell, I'm for open primaries, because it's the primary that's keeping us divided like this. Because if more Republicans were able to vote in some of these elections in the primary stages, you could knock some of these guys off.
You might get a more conservative.
You might get more of a conservative. And people have to understand that conservative monitor just doesn't apply to Republicans. That's the mindset nowadays. No, John Kennedy was a conservative Democrat. When you look back at the history of the party, from the 60s on, Barack Obama was a conservative Democrat. Remember, he was not for gay marriage. And they tried to pillar him, but he stuck to his guns. It was Joe Biden that pulled him out of that and changed the party. And
Barack Obama is still known today as the deporter in chief.
Yeah, absolutely. He was, but see, you see, what you don't see is the blue hair types bringing that up. They don't talk about that.
Correct.
But because he followed federal law. And you don't have a country if you don't believe in the rule of law. That's the first thing.
Or if you don't have a country either if you don't have a sovereign border.
Well, of course.
That's not asking
Every
too
country
much.
has a right to its sovereignty. When I debate folks on this issue of immigration, I tell them, when you go to Europe, you have to have your passport and visa. Okay? Mm-hmm. And they say, well, they're running from tyranny. And I say, well, under international immigration law, you go to the first country you get to and ask for asylum. Right. Our Title 8 of our immigration laws state you can't come here for economic reasons. You have to come here if you're running from tyranny or whatever, and you submit at the port of entry and you'll have a hearing. But you can't have folks jump the line and come here illegally. And unfortunately, there are folks in my party who have bought into that. And I know why they have. It's when people say, oh, it's to get people to vote. No, it's for the census.
Sure.
Census don't count citizens, they count bodies.
Right.
So they get money from the government for the more of your population. And they see in the Northeast, you have a influx of folks who are leaving the blue states and going to the red states. So they're losing population base.
Right. Yeah, it's like you've got the U-Haul tracker,
right?
Lighting up New York State and New York City and heading to Florida,
Pennsylvania.
This is something we've talked about as a committee as well, because we teeter on the second-class city,
right?
Only by a couple thousand, I believe.
Yes,
and certainly under 10,000.
Yes.
And once we drop out of that second-class city status, things change for us considerably on what we can do and money that we'll be getting in from
and Philadelphia would love that. I mean, Philadelphia contingency controls the state, and controls our Commonwealth. The folks from Philadelphia look down at us here in West Pennsylvania. They think we're a bunch of hicks. No, seriously, I have talked to many of them. They think their mindset is they want to be like New York. Okay, that's as far as us here in Western Pennsylvania and the rest of the state, they think we're a bunch of hillbillies.
Well, we do have that name, the Paris of the Appalachia.
Right, and they govern that way because you've got a lot of progressives in Philly who are dictating what's going on, and they got Shapiro scared.
Sure. Well, and just to maybe just close out on one point that you brought up about you yourself being a Kennedy Democrat, the chairman for the Republican Party of Allegheny County, Jason Ritchie, that's something that he says a lot. He said, listen, if JFK were alive today, he would not recognize today's Democrat Party. So it's and I think that's why, Anthony, you and I have been friends for a while. That's probably why we get along so well is we're looking for those solutions in the middle, sort of more of a common sense approach as opposed as ideology approach.
Open primaries would start. Like I said, you get more people. That's why when I was on with the radio with Paul Zeiss, I used to tell folks who were Republican, if you want to change the primary system when it's the Democrat, change your registration, vote Democrat, and then change back after the election. And you'll have a say in that because that's where the progressives get. That's how they're accumulating so much of the power. They're knocking people off in the primaries. You see what they're going to do to John Fetterman. He's going to leave the party. Now, I don't know if he's going to go to the Republican Party, but he's going to leave the Democrats, either be an independent or Republican.
I think
that's coming very soon.
I think he's going to follow along the Joe Lieberman line.
Arlen Specter. Arlen Specter had to do the same thing when the Republicans were phasing him out. He had to do the same thing.
And it's just a shame that it's come to that because John Fetterman and Dave McCormick have such a great relationship, and they're working together to take care of business for everybody in Pennsylvania, not just the people that have a D by their name or just the folks that have an R by their name. So I know that's been a breath of fresh air for me personally, just to see the two of them. They probably don't agree on, if you have 10 issues, maybe they'll agree on 5.
Yes.
But they're willing to work together,
Right.
And get things done.
And I know, since you brought it up, because it was a question I was eventually going to ask, you were not a McCormick supporter, right? If I'm wrong, let me know. You were a Bob Casey supporter.
No, I didn't vote for Bob Casey.
Okay.
I voted for, as a matter of fact, I did vote for McCormick. McCormick's from Highland Park area.
Yep.
And I don't always, I voted for Arlen Specter, the late great John Hines, who should have been president of these here United States. So no, I don't, I don't do that. I don't,
maybe I misunderstood
mayor,
a previous conversation.
I voted for the person that ran for mayor as a Republican. I wasn't going to vote for Gainey because Gainey used to be my state rep. Mm-hmm. So I knew he was he didn't do anything there. So why would I reward that with mayorship? So no. Nope. No, I did vote for O'Connor but he fooled me. He talked like he was going to be a centrist. So I was feeling good. And then he goes in there and the left hijacked him, as they have done unfortunately, to a lot of the politicians in this area, Republican and Democrat, because these people are afraid of these folks.
Well, is that it? I mean, he could stand up to him, couldn't he?
Well, he's not like his father. He could stand up, and he would win more votes if he did. But the lunatic fringe has scared these folks. Like we were talking about Fetterman. Yeah. Fetterman votes 91% of the time with the Democrats, but It's not good enough for the green and purple head people. You have to do 100%. And but a lot of it is lunacy. You can't vote for some of the stuff that they've attached themselves to.
So how do you see the relationship between Fetterman and McCormick?
Oh, I think it's great. I mean,
that agrees with us,
right?
Much, right?
Yeah,
folks, we have to understand the federal government dispenses a lot of resources to our Commonwealth. So you want to get along with the folks at the federal level. Mm-hmm. So what are you doing? This obstructionist nonsense doesn't help us. No. We need those resources. We infrastructure needs help. Even when you talk about this draft that's coming up.
Sure.
Those folks on city council are talking about non-cooperation that they're going to have with the feds. Well, what if the feds said that about this draft? Say, we'll let you in the state, you and the Commonwealth handle all the security. They'd go crazy, wouldn't they?
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about Fetterman and you talk about the draft. I didn't hear it today, but I believe Fetterman was supposed to be on KDKA to talk about adding another level of security.
Right.
To
threat assessment, I believe, is how they look at it.
Yeah, the SEER system. So I believe right now we're at a level 3 event, mm-hmm. and John Fetterman would like more resources put in to bring this event and to bring the security, I guess, envelope to a level 2 event. That's the way I understood it.
Right, because there's going to be a lot of eyes on Pittsburgh, obviously. I mean, not just because of the draft, but because it's handled. Just like we have consulted with Green Bay many times on how they've handled it, we're going to be asked upon, what was the difference between Pittsburgh and Green Bay for the next place that has it in their hometown.
Yeah, they're studying for the next town.
There's a precedence being set here in Pittsburgh and in Green Bay on how we handle these things. So of course we want to have the best security look as possible.
Well, we have to, especially now during a time of war, because we're in a war phase. So
we're on a war footing. So our
and there are some
guard
people
has to be
who
up.
There are groups out here who would love to be very disruptive. So that's why this was not necessary. The language that came out of council, but it's performative. Mm-hmm. The green and purple head types. That's what they want. That's what they were. When I was at one of those city council meetings, and
Yeah.
talked about that issue of immigration and told them that you can't ignore federal law. You have to be cooperative with them. I mean, what are you doing? Because I told them, I said, listen, the legislative branch of the city, you create laws. That's how it's supposed to work. So what if we decide we're going to just ignore them?
Right.
Well, it's unconstitutional to do that. And they take an oath. The security of the American people, it's part of their oath.
Correct.
Judges and council and the executive branch, but you can't ignore it because your lunatic part don't want you to cooperate. Well, it's just not. It hurts us all, really. Puts us all in danger.
And it's, we've said this on the show before, but people conflate. They say, talk about immigrants.
Right.
Well, there's legal immigrants,
Right.
and then there's illegal immigrants,
Right.
but they don't use that language.
No, they just say blanket word.
They
That's
just say
what I
immigrants, and then if you question that, or if you say, well, wait a minute, there's a legal process here, then you're
a xenophobe.
you're not allowed to sit at the cool kids table.
No.
And
That's
it
what
just is
got me in trouble with the city council. I mean, they were in the back, catcalling me, but I don't care. As I told them, I don't worry about
You've seen this movie a few times,
Yeah, I
haven't
can
you?
handle it. I mean, I was,
And I think Suzanne even mentioned that using the term coming into the country the quote unquote right way is deemed politically incorrect right now.
Right.
What is the right way to come into the country? And I think that illegal immigration cheapens the effort. The people who have come here legally and went through the process, it cheapens their effort to come here and integrate into our country and reap the
Right.
benefits of our country.
Well, let's be clear. The left, the extreme left, used these so-called protesters to get themselves in the middle of arrests. See, that's where they encouraged it, and then when it goes awry, they want to say that they were being tortured or they were being. No, you should have told your people to stay out of that. They sent them down to get in their bed. You can't get, if Todd or Russ, if you guys are driving along and the police pull you over, it may be a wrongful, but you can't get in the middle of an arrest of Todd,
Right.
or you're going to go to jail with Todd, or worse.
Correct.
But they encourage their people to do this. You have immigration officials making an arrest, and you're blowing whistles in their face or shooting fireworks at them, or driving your car into them, or I mean, come on.
It's provocative and dangerous, and we don't.
Yes, and then when the results turned on them, they used that as more fuel to say we got to get rid of all of this. So they held up the whole government. You couldn't even go on spring break without staying in a line for 7 hours because the zealots decided they weren't going to support that. So I mean, they hurt all of us for their agenda.
But you know what, guys? I think that they must see this issue as a way to gain political favor, as a way to gin up the base, as sort of the left
For the midterms.
looks forward towards the midterms. I really think that they must think like they can really capitalize on this.
Right.
Anthony, what is your perspective on that? Is the air going to eventually come out of this or not?
Well, if you've noticed, you didn't see many black folk in the middle of these protests. And I was one of those who were online and publicly saying, black folk, stay out of this issue. It's not our fight. For one thing, these people who are here illegally, as you saw in Chicago, are taking resources that were supposed to go for your districts in your neighborhoods, and they're using it for people here illegally. So that's not our issue.
Yeah.
We're going to follow, and plus, getting in the middle of arrests will have dire consequences for you. Right. So stay out of that mess. You don't need to get in the middle of that because we're going to follow the law. And that, as I tell them, if you don't like the way that ISIS cooperate, then you in Congress change the laws. That's how you get things done. You can't do it on the fly. And so that they have a responsibility to change, but they're not going to do that.
Yeah, and I reiterate what you're saying here because you and I ran into one another at the Target protest, and those were Upper St. Clair and Fox
Yes.
Chapel and maybe Hampton or
Yes.
those were suburban,
Yes.
mostly women.
Yeah. Flower children from the '60s. They were paying. No, seriously. They were playing Joan Baez type music.
Whoa.
No, it was really an embarrassment. And those who live in that neighborhood were saying, "Hey, why do you come to our neighborhood and have your little phony protests?"
Right, of all the targets in Allegheny County,
What are you
why
coming
didn't
over
they
here
go
for?
to Camp Horn Run
Right.
or
No, came over. They wouldn't get the publicity. So
right.
plus they, as you have seen in Bloomfield and areas like that, they've infiltrated it from with these like Miss Warwick and that crowd with that San Francisco mindset, and they come in here and they've changed our city for the worse.
Our old neighborhoods up there where you and I are look a lot different.
Oh my goodness!
And I mean,
gracious.
just going back, let's say 2 decades.
Yes, but I warned everyone when Sarah and the Murado and Summer Lee were getting. I don't understand how these people win, to be quite honest with you. But see, when folks get angry about why Sarah and the Murado is there, well, I tell them blame Rich Fitzgerald because he had an opportunity to go behind one candidate. You may not like John Weinstein, but he was more conservative and he knew where all the money was. So Michael Lamb should have been talked out of not running because they split that vote in that primary, and then she saw shade in, and I mean, and you saw she was as she is right now.
That was a crowded primary field.
She didn't have much to say even back then, and she and when she went immediately, I warned everyone. You're going to raise your property taxes. And oh no, what did she do?
Raise property taxes
Without cutting what? First thing, anybody who knows when you have a budget problem.
Oh yeah.
You have to cut people. You have to cut that too. Spending. You can't.
And Rocky's message, he was also warning people about that.
You have to. But unfortunately, it was a whisker that he lost by because they consolidated together.
That broke a lot of hearts.
Well, he should have won. I voted for him. I ran. I helped his campaign.
I saw you on his campaign trail a lot.
I did all I could because I knew you had to have someone who was fiscal because we're not growing. We don't have, like they keep talking about we don't have an immigration problem here in Allegheny County.
Correct.
Please.
I mean, we talked about this, and I went to county council meeting when the same Lunatic Fringe was standing up there talking about, just letting everybody in and not enforcing federal immigration law. And I said I got a chance to speak with the news after the fact, and I said, what county council should be talking about is that actually we do need migration into Allegheny County, whether it's legal immigrants, because those are the folks we should be celebrating, or folks that moved away come back to Allegheny County. But you have to grow. You have to grow the tax base.
Yes, when you do that by cutting regulation and taxes. Now, the state, our Commonwealth, is still one of the highest tax states in the country, and it goes by both parties because you see they could cut that legislature branch, and it's bloated. But why would they?
We have the biggest legislator in the country,
and they make the most money.
Yeah,
they have health insurance in perpetuity, and that's both parties. So they could both be blamed for that.
Yeah, and I've never tried to fool anybody about our gas tax. That gas tax was passed under Republican, a Republican watch. And
yes,
So when everybody said, "Oh, you're just all Republican," well, yeah, I kind of am all Republican, but I know that there are faults in the Republican Party, and the humongous gas tax that we pay in this state is a result of the Republicans.
And you don't hear Shapiro talking about cutting that, do you?
No. Well,
and it should be cut right now during the crisis.
When he ran in 22, he did promise that he was going to provide a $250 rebate.
Right.
But then he never gave. It would be a $250 gas rebate.
That's because the lunatics got to him and he stopped his talk about natural gas. Okay, we led the country in natural gas resource here in our Commonwealth.
Yeah.
But the Fringe doesn't like that. New York doesn't even have, they don't even extract their natural gas because of blue. So I'm telling you guys, what saved its Commonwealth right now is the Republicans you have in the state Senate. If you had,
we've got some good ones.
If you had
locally,
both of those, if you had the Dems having both of those branches, we would be in big trouble, buddy.
Right up there with California.
Yes.
Well, that leads to the question, because you brought that up. Who is in charge of the Democrat Party right now? If people are bending Josh Shapiro's ears and pulling him back from some of his campaign promises, who's running the party?
It's the progressives from Philly. They said they look down at the rest of the Commonwealth. You know, Erie, Westmoreland. They if you're not from New York, they don't even consider you alive. So they mock us. So Philly, and I know I talked back in my days when I was involved in the Democratic politics. I had a lot of friends in Philly, and if you see their branch of the party is completely progressive.
Well, we know that from the last administration here, mayor administration, that SEIU,
yes,
it's
even stronger in Philly.
Out of Philly seemed to be really influential.
It is,
and I would say had the previous mayor's ear.
Yes, they were very upset to lose out to Corey O'Connor.
You know, that race was a lot closer than I think most people realize.
Yeah,
it was like 3,000 votes.
Yes, it got close. Well, the last race was, because that's why when you had the Gainey people who brought race in it. Well, I said, listen, the same people who voted for Peduto voted for you. So please stop with the race nonsense. When you're incompetent, you're incompetent, and some people can see incompetence. And thank goodness 3,000 of them to say this is incompetency at the highest level.
Yeah.
And it was. And if Corey doesn't get his act together, he's going to have the same fate, because he's putting lipstick on a pig by cleaning up the city. But if you're still allowing what we're seeing weekend after weekend with hooligans coming down and homeless still running around and drugs all over the place, and we're not growing. We still need businesses. You can't you can't put retail as far as home apartments, and that's only the wealthy who want to leave the suburbs and move closer to the city are going to be there. Who's going to be able to live there? Who's going to be able to afford it?
I know you say that, and I would say, let's take a look at what the city looks like on Memorial Day,
right?
And see if it's as clean and stays as clean as it is for the NFL draft. Well, and that's not to say that you can't exhale and take a breath and relax a minute, but you have it cleaned up. Why don't we keep it cleaned up?
And it's not like this is an aberration, folks. I tell folks, I said, what do you folks think that this town looked like when you had Elsie Hillman and Caligari working together? You didn't. Let's be clear. The 80s got some horrible economic times here. Sure. We lost a lot of manufacturing jobs, but you didn't have people punching a tit on Fifth Avenue. So, because acceptability, they wouldn't have allowed that nonsense. So they've allowed this, and I would always get into debates with them on the radio. I'd say, hold up, listen, these folks aren't destitute. Some of these people, they know how to work the welfare system, and they used, instead of wanting to live like the rest of us, and by rules and regulations, when you pitch a tent downtown somewhere or on Grant Street, you don't have to. So,
and unfortunately, I would say that 70% of the folks that are experiencing homelessness downtown, they have an addiction problem.
Well, let's work on that then.
That's really what we need to work on.
Yes.
Their brains just unfortunately aren't working like the rest of us.
Well, you have to enforce the laws too.
Right, and it is the rules of supply and demand, and as the cop in me says, let's dry up the supply, and the demand will go somewhere else, go back home, and won't be living on the street. And maybe somebody will take them in, and they'll go back to their parents, and their parents will give them another chance, and maybe this time it works out. I get it, but the open air drug dealing has to stop, and it certainly is slowed. But I think it is slowed because the border has been shut down, and so
look
certain
at the
drugs
people who are
aren't
using the drugs too. Because you said you're an ex-police officer, right?
right.
Well, Todd, you know what it was like during the crack epidemic.
I certainly do.
If you were caught with paraphernalia, you went to jail.
Right.
People were collapsing down here in the city for a while. They were resuscitating them, and they still had their drugs on them.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there should have been consequences for that, shouldn't there?
I would think so.
Right. So see, that slippery slope. Because you didn't do that in the 80s, in the 90s when we had the crack epidemic. There's time after time you saw people arrested. They had paraphernalia. You went to jail.
And I can tell you, because of the firsthand information I get, that the medics would show up at a call, and my medic friends would say, "Oh, the real police showed up and took care of business today." And you're like,
Right.
"What are you talking about? Who's the real police?" "Oh, the Port Authority, or Point Park,
Right.
or the county police."
Right.
Because the city police stood there with their hands in their pockets, because that was their instruction to do
That's
so.
been their instructions.
And people were getting jammed up. And this story gets told a lot, because this reason why the county police don't patrol downtown anymore is because the county police were making the arrest for the open air marijuana use that Bill Peduto said it was okay to do.
Right.
And
Well, we all remember
county
that.
police got stepping out real quick. Because they were doing their job, and they're like, "We're not going to be told by."
But you had Fitzgerald though. Now you've got Inamorado. She's not going to go for that.
No, she wouldn't.
You
She would be siding with Peduto.
Of course. I mean, that's the.
Well, you talked about Sarah, and you talked about Summer Lee.
Right.
Now, it looks like, if we can just stick on, it looks like we're going to have a Democrat primary for Congress. Another guy from our area of town is on the ballot.
Against Summer Lee?
Mr. Parker.
Oh, okay.
He did get his signatures, and they tried to kick him off.
Oh, okay.
But he did get his signature, so it looks like he will be. And then he pushed back on them and tried to get them off the ballot.
Right. Well, I was surprised at the votes that Summer Lee got from Westmoreland County in her last election. I was shocked at that. I mean, what's happened to Westmoreland County? That used to be a very Republican conservative area. What happened?
Yeah, that's where we need.
I don't.
We need to
to
do better there.
There's no way in the world, under circumstances that we know from Westmoreland County, that Summer Lee wouldn't even be able to walk come to any town in Westmoreland County. Now let win an election.
Yeah, I mean, she didn't win in Westmoreland County, but she got enough.
Well, she got enough votes
to
defeat whoever the Republican was.
Yeah, but we have. I don't know if you
to offset with the city.
I don't know if you remember James Hayes.
Yes,
James is running again.
Okay.
So.
Well, he needs to talk. There's issues. There's plenty. Look, they leave a lot of fodder for you if you're running against them. I mean, from attacking Jews to the immigration issue. And spending.
We talked about that. Probably the biggest voting block in Allegheny County is in the city. It's the 14th Ward.
Okay.
It's the most dense, and they are high propensity. The highest turnout.
That's the Squirrel Hill and.
Yeah.
And so
I was shocked that they voted for. I mean, I was shocked.
So we're going to need, James is going to need to do a little bit better in there, and then of course, perform better where Republicans traditionally
isn't
do
that
better.
Miss Warwick's area?
Yes, Barb Warwick.
Barb Warwick.
Well, some of it.
Well, they're angry.
Some of that's divided between Erica Strasberg and Barb Warwick.
They should be angry at both of them because they were the ones who pushed for the increase in taxes.
Mm-hmm.
See, the Republic, whoever runs, those are the issues you have to say, hey, we have higher property tax because of people like us. That's an issue. We got a problem with regulations in this town. Hit those issues.
Well, Anthony, we do try to hit those local issues from potholes to property taxes, but a lot of times, the national issues bleed in.
Yes.
And for some reason, it drowns out let's call it the local issues. So that's something that we've been.
And it's a reason why this ICE issue won't go away. And we know that they'll always bring abortion into every argument that they can because people come running with bags of money to support.
Well, you got the outside influences,
right,
that will do that. And then you got the Bethany Hallams and that crowd. I mean, you talk about. I mean, hey, that's look, stranger days. She's the leader of it.
In the 23 election, she received more votes than Sarah.
Yeah, she did. And there was a rift between the two about that. I mean, she was filling some oats there. She was starting to think that she was the county exec. So they had a big clash, but they seemed to, like most progressives, they work things out. And they somehow worked it out to our detriment.
Yeah, they always manage to hug and make up. Since that came up, why don't we talk about what happened today for a second? Because we issued a press release, and where we talked about sort of something along that line, where the ICE issue in Pittsburgh and the motions that they were passing from City Council and how it affected the mayor's duties,
right.
and it sort of blurred the lines, as I said when interviewed about it, between the legislative and executive branches. And the executive branch, of course, would have oversight of the police department, and it all circles around this 287G issue, which I think that I have been consistent about in saying that is an issue that if the mayor chooses not to be involved with, that fully explains what working with ICE is. The 287G is working with ICE. There's no question about that. And if the mayor chooses to not be involved in that, I was okay with that. What in the course of normal police work, where you say you can't do work with ICE when everything tells you that you should be notifying ICE for whatever case it is you're working on, now you're not allowed to do that. And it by my interpretation of it blurs the city charter, which gives us a mayor-strong city, and it's Barb Warwick and Deb Gross and Erica Strasburger reached out and pulled power away from the mayor, made it law, and now we have what seems to be a stronger council and a weaker mayor.
Well, someone could sue because they've overstepped their bounds. It is our home rule charter is very clear, and you have to get an entity. And if the Republicans could do it, sue them. Because you can't ignore laws you don't like, and this is a solution looking for a problem. We don't have that here in Allegheny County. That's large enough for you to waste time to have legislation that's veto proof. Because normally a mayor who's the purview of the police is in the executive branch. So if he was assertive, he would tell them to go fly a kite, because let's be clear, that's in my purview. I'm the one negotiating the collective bargaining agreements. The mayor is. So when you have a weak mayor who won't stand up to them, they'll take advantage of them. So this is where the courts are going to have to step in, because they have an obligation. You can't selectively say what laws you're going to enforce and ones you're not going to, especially when it comes from the federal. The purview of immigration is in our Constitution is under federal jurisdiction. They can't do what they're doing.
Right. So let's add on to this what county council had already done by initiating what I would claim and have claimed was a anti-whistleblower law.
Right.
And the city accepted that and sort of built on it. You're a union guy. You've represented unions in the past. How do you see that playing out, and what's your opinion on how the anti-whistleblower.
Well, here's what's going to have to happen.
Angle of that happens.
As soon as someone who, say ICE is fighting with a suspect, and the suspect starts fighting, and there's a Pittsburgh police officer who intervenes to help that ICE officer. If this gets back to council or the mayor, he fires that police officer, then the courts will get involved, and then it'll be thrown out because they don't have the authority to do that. They have an obligation to work with police entities, with the state, the county. So you, just because your fringe says it's wrong to do, you have to follow the law. And the laws are very clear on this issue. So they don't have but they have to be challenged though. And there will be challenged as soon as, because make no mistake about it, someone's going to get fired who are upholding the law that's a police officer. And that's where we'll find out as far as through the courts. But who's the local city Republican branch should go to court on them. Tell them they're violating the home rule charter, and they can't do it. They don't have the authority to make this legislation and have anybody uphold.
Well, I pulled it up, just to look at the language in the home rule charter.
Right.
Okay. The direct language is this. This is Article 2, Section 201. The executive, administrative, and law enforcement powers of the city shall be vested in the mayor. The mayor shall control and be accountable for the executive branch of the city.
Yes.
So there it is.
Yes.
I mean, it's right there in black and white. And I don't know what they're going to do with this, because the mayor is basically, as Todd made the point, I think on the radio today, the mayor has essentially made himself the 10th council person.
And he should not want his authority to be usurped. This is something we shouldn't have to have this conversation. And his people should be having it with him.
Exactly, and it's okay because they all agree on this.
Yes.
What happens when they don't agree?
Right.
Where does this slippery slope? Where do we start to fall off of this slippery slope?
Well, we're there.
Oh, I know.
We're already,
and that's my whole point. Is that if county council enacts things that say you can't be a whistleblower despite your moral and ethical obligation to do so. And now city council said, well, we're going to just nip and bite away at the mayor's powers, and we'll all just be one big happy family. Well, it's okay when you're one big happy family, but what happens when you're not? And here's a news flash. There is going to come a time where the mayor isn't going to agree with city council. And whether it's this mayor, the next mayor, and that effort is being pulled away, that authority is being pulled away from future mayors.
Yes. And
where does it end?
Well, it wasn't that long ago that we had that. Ravenstall. He stood up to council when some of them got out of line with crazy nonsense. And so we saw it in our county with Fitzgerald. He stood up to those lunatics all the time.
And I noticed that in county council's legislation, there's nothing that takes away from the authority of the executive, because I'm sure she said, you're not going to take away my authority. And that goes back to what you said, how this all started was that there had been some animosity between the councilwoman at large and the executive.
Well, this is where the Republican Party of the city needs to put out a statement saying, and find it. I'm sure you guys have a lot of Republican attorneys.
There might be a few around.
Sue the city council on this issue. Sue. That way, you may even find that candidate who might want to take on the mayor and have these issues. These issues are ripe because we're right now, as far as the finances go in the city of Pittsburgh, we're headed for Act 47 again, folks. Mm-hmm. So this is where a strong Republican Party should insert themselves in issues like this and point these things out about upholding our home rule, which is like our Constitution.
Yeah, and that's what we're trying to do. And Russell, I've used your line of law of unintended consequences today.
Good.
I'd like to think that these people in government know these things, that, hey, you've pulled away power from the mayor and powered yourself up here.
Right.
but maybe they don't. I mean,
Well,
does
shame
Joe,
on-
does Joe Schmo
Shame
know?
on them.
Does
Look,
Joe Schmo, the guy walking down Smithfield Street or Brookline Boulevard or wherever, do they know that? Does that register to them? Do they care?
Well, you don't have a mouthpiece who should be talking about this issue. It started with you today. You should be more like that. They should be talking to folks like you, because this is an issue. This affects all of us, to be quite honest with you, because it's about our safety.
yeah, this actually isn't a political issue.
No, as I stated before, it's a solution looking for a problem. We don't have an issue on it. So why are you wasting your? Now we do have an issue on regulation and overtaxation. Those are things that you on council should be looking at.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
This is a distraction. So it's hurting all of us when you're not focusing in. And this, as we see now, we've got a mayor who's a weakling. When you're looking at it, because there's no strong mayor would have allowed the council to even. They would have cut this at the knees a long time ago before you even got to that.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, he is of the same mindset. See, groupthink.
Well, and you talked about does council know, or do they know what they're even passing? I mean, Barb Warwick said it on the radio, it was 2 days ago. She said that they have asked the solicitor
Yes.
if there were things they could or couldn't do. And I think the words Barb Warwick used were, because we want to make sure that the solicitor protects the city.
Yes.
So my question is, from what?
Well, yeah, she did. There were limitations.
Okay.
She did say that. I saw the
So
same thing, and
what-
it registered with me.
Yeah,
too.
what is it that they want to? Is it what
she wanted to
Is it
go
what
even
Todd's
further.
picked up on, that they're in breach of contract, let's say, with the home rule charter, or
Well,
what?
of course they are, and they don't have, as Todd said, they don't. This is in the purview of the executive branch, and this is where you would want the mayor to act like Donald J. Trump right now,
Right.
because he has usurped the power of the Congress. He's doing a lot of, this is what you want, but he feels it's for the best of the country. Well, sir, you can't, at this point, we're trying, but maybe I'm going to give this mayor a benefit of the doubt for now. Maybe he's distracted because of the Super Bowl, the draft. And he's trying to get all the ducks in a row, and it's a lot of money coming in. So he doesn't want to make any waves, but he can't allow this if he wants to stay mayor.
But wait a minute now, Anthony. They wanted to get this done before the draft.
Right.
That was a priority, and he knows that.
Well, but he's
And there were there were stipulations on this too, where we're not going to sign a cooperative agreement with an outside agency who is under a 287G or does actively cooperate with ICE. So you've eliminated certain sheriff's departments that come in.
right.
And wouldn't it be nice if we had a sheriff that had a set and stood up to these people, because he could certainly stand up
He
to these
certainly
people, but he's in the same wash bin as the rest of them there.
Yes.
They're all together in this.
And he's an old police officer from the city. He was involved with the FOP. Knowing him from way back, he was a conservative Democrat. But the money comes from the executive branch here in the county, and he's looking out for, because he gets as much money as he wants for his officers. They got some of the highest pay, great benefits, so he doesn't want to make any waves. But when are you going to have principle? Stand on principle. If you become assertive and stand on principle, people, that will resonate more than you kowtowing, like what we have with the mayor.
Mm-hmm.
He's kowtowing to that crowd.
Absolutely.
As soon as they made this, he should have called a news conference and said they don't have the authority to do what they're saying they want to do. But he has the same. He's like Gainey. It's the same mindset.
Yeah, I mean, he could have said, look, his standard line is we want our immigrants to feel safe, right? Because they conflate the two. He could have said that, as well as saying they don't have the authority to do that. He could have said both things.
But what about the citizens? Listen, we're not. The country, as they like to say, yes, we understand the importance of having immigration, legal immigration. But we also know there's pitfalls when you have illegal immigration. And then you have, and let's be clear, this is a three-pronged issue. You got the mayor, you got city council, and you got the judicial branch. You've got a lot of progressives there too, from the magistrates to the judges, who aren't holding people accountable. Mm-hmm. They believe they have this. What the city council did was a quasi sanctuary city policy.
Correct.
Right.
That's what this is. This make no mistake yourself. They don't call it sanctuary city, but it's a quasi. Same thing.
Yeah.
And they
all
got
the elements for a
Right.
sanctuary city are there.
Non-cooperation with ICE and sanctuary city are interchangeable. They're
of course, same thing.
You know?
It's but see, they love word salads, so they can't say because they know that connotation sanctuary city. Oh boy, people would really they'd have a different opinion.
I love the part where the Homeland Security is saying we need more bomb dogs in the city for the NFL draft,
Right.
but we won't bring a bomb dog in from a department that works with ICE.
Right.
And how is that helping everyone? How is that good for everybody?
The feds are going to bring in the bomb dogs. The feds are overseeing it. Homeland Security is in charge of this stuff here. They have no authority over Homeland Security. This is their purview. Super Bowls, draft, what? They're going to assert themselves. And if there's people who are illegally, they're going to arrest them. So they're laughing at council.
Right.
There's no teeth with them on this issue. They know that. But it's performative.
It's performative.
To
but
the
again,
greenheads, looks great.
But it is performative. But it goes back and it does begin to embolden people.
Well, of course it does.
To potentially interfere in law enforcement operations. That's the thing that has worried me about this from the very beginning. And I was hopeful that Corey would just come out and say,
well, it's going to have to be forced.
that we don't agree maybe with federal law enforcement. We could say we don't agree with it, but we're going to allow them to do their jobs. I mean, I don't see any problem in saying that.
They're afraid.
What it creates as far as a law enforcement officer goes, that hey, if you're an ICE agent and I punch you in the face and I get away from the first wave of ICE agents, they can't call the city and have this massive manhunt for me and lock down Arlington until you find me for punching an ICE agent. It gives you the idea that if you get away, you can get away with.
Well, you saw that in Minnesota, where the governor and the mayor allowed those so-called protesters to go down, get in between arrests, blow whistles in the police face, shoot fireworks at the police. And back in the day when I was a union rep, I had to organize strikes, and we had protests from back in the 60s, and because I was involved in the Youth Black Panther Party, and we had protests about discrimination and everything. We had to get a permit. You had to do it correctly. We couldn't obstruct traffic. You went to jail for things like that. But you had to have a permit. They allow these people to block traffic in the streets. They just, after what happened in 2020, they build on that. Just you can't allow people. And as I used to warn our folk, there's no legitimate protest that happens at night.
Correct.
It's right for mischief.
Correct.
So if you say anybody wants to protest at night, they're not really protesting. They're up to no good. Mm-hmm. You have no legitimate, because we don't know who's involved. We don't know who these people are, and the police don't either. So now you got chaos. You have to do it in daylight, and you have to know the hours. So anybody who would always suggest anything at night, no. And you see, anytime you see these night protests, there's always somebody getting hurt or killed or worse.
And just to kind of bring this all back together, I just got a great message from a dear friend of ours, Joe, and he sends a message saying the failure of federal agencies to communicate and collaborate with one another is what brought us to 9/11,
yes.
9/11.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So they should cooperate. I mean, it's all about public safety.
Yes. Well, look, the commissioner of the NFL is not going to allow this nonsense. He wants as much police protection as humanly possible.
And the Roonies don't want it.
No,
they don't
the Roonies
need it because they promised a stellar event.
Right. Because they're already online, these hooligans talking about they're going to come down and have these flash mobs. And I warned them, look, the feds are going to be here in abundance. It's not going to be like the flash mobs you've had. They will.
Yeah, the state police aren't going to
You
tolerate
will regret
it.
this stuff.
Not even getting out of the city jurisdiction,
Yes.
you're going to have state police down here.
State
they're
police,
not going to tolerate
county
none
police.
of that.
They're
They're not tolerating
You know what,
that at
fellas? We tell them all the time. See, this is where common sense comes in. You know, you have the homeless all over the city,
Yep.
right? But you have a big, beautiful point with all the grass in the world. You never see any homeless down there, do you?
You really don't.
You know why? Because the state police aren't going to have it. It's under the state jurisdiction.
Mhm.
So you're not going to come in and pop your little tent and have.
Right.
I mean, if you're homeless, for one thing, why do you have a Saint Bernard if you're homeless? I mean,
That's an expensive.
Right,
That dog eats a lot.
this
That
is
eats more than a
exaggeration.
person.
I saw a guy. They were homeless. This was in the summer. In a Saint Bernard. How are you homeless with your tent with a Saint Bernard?
Yeah.
This is just nonsense now.
You know my 100-pound puppy. He eats
Right.
me
yeah.
by a
You
by a
can't
mile.
eat, but who's feeding the Saint Bernard if you're homeless?
You better be fishing for catfish and be a very good fisherman or
Right,
something. I don't know.
So this is crazy stuff, folks.
Anthony,
Yeah.
you've done a lot of radio work.
Yes.
And we deflect from some of the hardcore stuff that we talked about. I believe a friend of yours, you said that you knew Chris Moore
Oh, yes,
has recently retired. You worked
Yeah,
with him, you said?
Yes, we worked at we had a station in Homewood called WCXJ back in the 90s. And I was a caller. Like I used to call Fred Hansberger and Pentek and Roy Fox and Doug Hirth. And so one day, Chris, we were on a subject, and he said, if you think you could do a better job, I'm going on vacation, so I'm going to invite you in to do my show. So I came in and did the show and got popular, and they gave
Don't
me
threaten you with a good time.
yes, they gave me a slot because I was talking about issues
Yeah.
that from my, the history of how I grew up, how there had to be accountability, how we should have marriage before having children, and that's what we had. I said the family structure is very important because a lot of the issues we talked about were black issues, but we talked about politics, national and city. So it was a multitude of issues, but most of it was about behavior.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so you had. I remember a subject we were talking about crime. I said, well, in the black community, you have disorganized crime, and in other communities, you have organized crime. So this is an issue, and it hurts all of us. Crime hurts us all.
Doesn't matter what kind of crime
No,
it
so
is.
we were
Exactly.
talking. Those were what we did on, and so Chris has been a good friend. He's not well now. That led to a lot of why he had to leave.
Okay. Well,
But he was a vet,
I-
we wish him well.
Yeah,
and
absolutely. And
congratulations on your
Oh, he's a
retirement.
good dude. But I talked to Roy Fox and Hansberger. The Hans man used to come on when I was on 6J. He used to come on my show.
Oh wow,
And,
stuff.
that
Pentek.
guy was a
You knew me
legend.
from Pentec
I know.
because we had some legendary battles.
I
Mike
would.
and I.
I've listened to Anthony back in the '90s, calling up
Yeah.
the Mike Pintek show.
I can remember here and there. For
Yeah,
sure.
but I was on sports shows. Myron Cope had me on. I was on
Whoa,
his show.
okay.
Bruce Kyden. I
Bruce
came on
Kyden.
and did 3 hours with Bruce Kyden. And because I had a history with, I used to live in the Penley Apartments in East Liberty when Ford's Field was open, and I was a paper boy. And I knew Roberto Clemente.
Wow.
I knew Manny Sanguillen and Al Oliver. As a matter of fact, Roberto Clemente, I used to watch, my grandma would watch his children.
Get
So
out.
I used to go to the ball games with Clement and Mr. Roberto and his wife Vera, and as a matter of fact, when Vera and the kids would be in Puerto Rico, and I would drop off my paper, he'd invite me in, and we'd sit and watch. His favorite show was The Munsters. So we
Now there's something you're not going to hear anywhere
yeah,
else.
we'd sit and watch them. And there was a restaurant in East Liberty on Negley Avenue called Brody's, and he and I would go for breakfast in the mornings sometimes.
Wow.
And so yeah, I knew
Cool was that?
very
That's a
very well.
Pittsburgh. That's a
That's good
Pittsburgh
stuff.
story right there.
Wonderful
stuff.
man. But Matty Alou was there. He lived across the hall from my family, and his family was wonderful. But I got to meet some of the greatest players of the 50s and 60s. I met Henry Aaron and Willie Mays and Orlando Cepeda and Felipe Alou. I got to meet all those fellas.
What do you think here? Give us your crystal ball for the Pirates this year. What do we we're making some
they
improvements.
Look to be headed in the right direction.
Yeah.
The signing of Griffin today is and people talk about, well, why couldn't they get Skis but they can get Griffin? Well, Griffin's a 19-year-old married man.
I know.
Right.
I know.
And he wants to establish his family with that money now. And Skis has Scott Boras. If anybody knows anything about Scott Boras, the agent, he's not going to get Skis to sign. I mean, Skis is looking at $500,000 when he's ready to leave town here. Now he's going to make money through arbitration. Mm-hmm. He'll get about 30 to 40 million a year because that's the going rate for pitchers of his ilk. But he's going to make, I mean, what the Dodgers, and the Yanks, they already got their eyes on him, and they already got the money.
I think a lot
ready.
of people. I think
They're
a lot
waiting.
of people are thinking. So
we need to take advantage of that now while we still have them.
For sure, and we need to keep the minor league pipeline.
Yeah, that's the key. Because that's what was the
That
key
is
in the
the key.
60s with the Pirates and 70s.
They could never pay a player, another dime as long as they're paying the scouts the right amount of money to bring the right people
And just
in.
to finish it off here, and maybe tie everything together, one of the untold stories in all this Venezuela conflict for 2.5 decades is that the Venezuelan farm system is a tremendous baseball farm system, but it had been decimated for a couple decades.
Yes, it has been because some of the best players came from there.
But so there's more good news.
Well, hopefully
we have,
since Maduro's in prison, he and his wife.
Yeah,
and now there seems to be a better communication with the administration.
This is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
We'll get
that
stand that farm system up, and
because they were the beacon of the South America back in the day.
Oh, there's no doubt about it.
No, they allowed when you allow that progressive, crazy socialist mindset to come in, as New York's ready to find out.
We had a gentleman sit right in that chair where you're sitting, and Venezuelan guy, and he said the Cubans used to tell us, "Be careful who you vote for," and the Venezuelan said that'll never happen to us.
Well, it did. And listen, Castro has been a master manipulator forever. I mean, he's outwitted many American president, and he outwitted the country. Look, he got the Americans to help him oust Batista,
right?
Yep.
He and the mob, and then he goes in and nationalizes everything, and kicks them out. They tried to kill him for 40 years.
Yeah.
So but look at the people. I mean, they're driving around 1950 cars. They know how to fix those cars, though.
Yeah,
don't they?
that's
It's
the thing.
amazing.
They can find the parts to fix them, and they know the knowledge.
They make their own parts,
right?
But I think good news in Cuba is imminent. I just have a feeling that sometime before the midterms, we're going to get more good news out of the Caribbean.
Well, Obama was headed in that direction until the Florida contingency didn't want that to happen. They threw a monkey wrench in there. It was happening until Rubio and that crowd didn't like it happening under the way it was happening under Obama. Because, of course, just like you have now, you have people who anything Trump says is bad. You had the folks back in the day, anything Obama said was bad. But helping the folks in Cuba helps us. Because where do you think they're going to buy American goods?
Well, I'm very confident that Rubio is going to.
Well, he may be your future in the party. He seems to be more reasonable than some of the folks here, and he's a smart guy.
You're going to get a lot of agreement on that.
Yeah, if you quit making memes about him,
and
playing center field for the Pirates and all that stuff.
Yeah, I mean he looks like the future. After you
he does.
I agree.
The Trumpster out.
I agree.
He's of all the people in the administration, he's the one I have the most confidence in. Because you see, he doesn't get out there and say a lot of silly, crazy nonsense. He's like Joe Friday by the book type.
And he has support from both chambers in the Senate, big time.
Yeah, he's a reasonable guy.
Anthony, position draft for the Steelers. What are we taking here?
Well, it
doesn't have to be a name, just a
offensive
position.
Line. Build up that offensive line and go with the young quarterback. This fascination with 42 going on 43-year-old
2 years in a row.
I mean, listen, McCarthy's a smart guy. He's from Greenfield. I'm sure he looked at that film of Aaron Rodgers and say, that's not good enough, folks. Because when you look at the whole season, against the good teams, they ate his lunch.
Yeah, it's not consistent enough.
No, he couldn't get out there. I mean, that Cleveland game should have been the nail for everyone. He was horrible in that game. That was a game. That Baltimore game would have been meaningless if you go take care of business in Cleveland.
Right.
He couldn't do it.
Right.
And it was, and you saw that was, boy, they hung on a missed field goal away from this town blowing up.
Yeah.
But you saw the week later, it still didn't matter. Houston came in here and cleaned her clock.
Yeah. Oh, Anthony, I appreciate hearing you on the radio all the time, and even when I'm decompressing and I flip it over to the sports channel and you're talking, and it's like you're on both channels. Like, how?
Yeah,
I don't.
Well,
I don't know how you have so much time to be so knowledgeable.
The fellas text me when they want to, especially on labor issues, because I was just on with Papiani on Saturday, talking about how Trump has put him through executive order, got himself involved with the NOI stuff.
Yes.
Well, he can't do that. He that's not in his purview. And I'm waiting for an agent to go sue him because he can't involve himself in that process. That's commerce. What's he doing interfering with that? I mean, he has no business because the NCAA wanted him to. They can't control it because they know it's they can't. It's antitrust violations. That's how they got the freedom in the first place. That's why they're being paid now, because the U.S. Supreme Court said it was unconstitutional to hold them out of, because the other students, they could hold jobs, their families could give them money, but athletes couldn't. If your family was wealthy as an athlete, your parents couldn't give you any money. So they said, this is ridiculous. The other students can take benefits, but you no. So
student athletes.
So he should have stayed out of that, but he's involved.
All right. Well,
Anthony, to be continued on that.
Yes. You are welcome anytime. We're glad to give you a platform that's not limited to 4 or 5 minutes and no commercials. So it's great. You're welcome back anytime. It's been a pleasure having you.
Well, I appreciate it. And I hope that the Republicans in the city and the county are a lot more successful than they have, because we need two parties.
Amen. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you for saying that. All right, my friend, why don't you remind everybody about our social media stuff here?
You can find us on all our socials. PGH GOP Committee. That's PGH GOP Committee on X, Facebook, and Instagram. Please check us out early and often.
Yeah, you're gonna want to keep tabs on that, because a lot of good big things happening here pretty soon. All that'll be announced on our social media. So exciting stuff happening here soon. Russell Show 20 in the book.
Great show.
A great show.
Great to have Anthony
thanks
in here.
again for joining us here. Thanks to 5-star producer Missy for making us look and sound great as always. And for Ike the Elephant and my co-host Russell Dreyer, the vice chairman. I am the chairman, and my name is Todd McCollum. This is the official podcast of the City of Pittsburgh Republican Committee, and we call it The Right Side of the Rivers. We'll see you in 2 weeks with a special guest once again. Be good, everybody.
Thanks for tuning in to The Right Side of the Rivers. We appreciate you spending your time with us as we talk about the issues that matter to Pittsburgh, Allegheny County, and beyond. Be sure to visit us online at pittsburghrepublicans.com for more updates, events, and ways to get involved. And don't forget to follow us on social media. We're on X, Facebook, and Instagram at PGHGOP Committee. Until next time, stay informed, stay engaged, and stay on the right side of the rivers.